have done when walking up.
Okay.
Okay. So we start out asking you a question about your book. Yeah.
Okay.
Mind, and we consider ourselves very lucky. I don't think we have that.
What's that?
No, we consider ourselves very lucky to be able to meet you personally.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
But that's where our intention goes. Yeah? Our intention today is that you have a good night.
Yes, thank you.
And that you have a very good fine night today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's so nice. Thank you.
Could patient the doctor do to have the most benefit of the effects?
Okay.
That's more or less the same. And then you have these functional MRI pictures.
Okay, I don't know what study that you're talking about for last week.
No.
I don't know which one that is.
No,
okay.
Leave that out.
Okay, I mean I can talk about MRI scanning and what goes on generally. That's no problem.
No,
Okay.
Because I have some.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Strip images. I don't know what that means.
A sequence. So you have the brain, and then you get the tension. And how do I call you?
Lynne. Yeah. So you're going to ask me the questions, and she's going to film me.
Yes.
And I've answered them by looking there.
Yes.
Okay. Do I ever look at you or not? No. Okay. Sorry? It's like it's in a rain again.
Okay.
Well, Lynne, we are very glad to have you here.
Nou, dat hoeft niet eigenlijk niet, hè? Want het heeft al u heeft toch al
We hebben de voorstellen natuurlijk gedaan, maar het is natuurlijk toch voor de film waar je zo opvalt. Je toch wel.
Nee, dat is gemakkelijk in Nederland.
Oh, oké.
Dus je mag gewoon even afvieren.
Oké.
So I should never look at you. Never look at you?
No.
Okay.
After the explanation, I'm interested to find out whether the goals of our book are in line with your intention as you describe in your book, the intention experiments. Would you explain this to us?
This is difficult because I'm not completely sure about the goals of your group. So it's hard for me to really state that we're in line with things. What I can say is something like, or to, what would be perceived as an endorsement, because I don't know your group yet. What I could say is something to
Making energy medicine visible.
Yeah. I'm interested in any groups that are trying to make energy I'm interested in groups that are trying to make energy medicine visible and more available to the public.
And can you then explain to us the world that's in and behind the attention experiment? So you can start with the attention experiment and then you explain about the
Okay. The purpose of my intention experiment is to try to demonstrate that the scientific story that we're given about the way the world works is very incomplete. And much of the frontier science that is unfolding now demonstrates that the idea that we've had that the big visible world is composed of single objects with no effect on each other is not really true. New information is coming out in quantum physics groups around the world demonstrating that big things like molecules, the sticks and stones, building blocks of the visible world, are in a state of potential. And by that I mean a state of not quite something yet. They are many builds. And so they seem to be influenceable. We've also discovered that whole notion of quantum entanglement, this invisible connection between subatomic particles within atoms and molecules, again, the building block of the universe. So the idea that there is one rule for the world of the quantum and one rule for the world of the large is not actually correct. It seems to be that the rules of the quantum world, those strange counterintuitive ideas, also affect the world at large. Are you going to do that again? It's allowed. Sorry, carry on? Okay. So, what I'd like to look at with my intention experiment is the effect of multiple minds trained on a particular target. I'm using scientific laboratories around the world and the technology of the internet to bring many, many people together to focus on an intention all at the same time. I'll have some sort of target where the outcome we're looking for will go against what we expect, go against what is perceived as order. So initially, we're looking at just whether or not our multiple minds, and there are thousands of people involved in this process, will be affecting one target. We're looking at whether or not we can affect 5 functions of a leaf. That's our first idea. But eventually, we would like to take things like wound healing, because we know wounds proceed in a particular rate. We can measure that, and it usually is undeviating. But if we can send an intention to speed up that process, that will have a huge impact, and that will be, that will have many implications. We're also looking at things like a mini world, a little mini Gaia, that would be a terrarium, and we would artificially raise the temperature, and then ask our intention group, our intention readers around the world, to send an intention over that temperature. And of course, if we could do that, the implications about global warming and our ability to affect it would be astounding. And so on. We're looking at maybe trying to affect a child with attention deficit. But in every case, our intentions will not be, and our intention experiments will not be about winning lottery, but about affecting some philanthropic target. Use our thoughts to change the world in a good way. Are you okay with all of that? All that background? You can rivet it? Oh, good. Okay.
Ik viel een beetje in.
Ja, hoe kan ik hem vastzetten?
Je mag hem gaan schrijven.
Misschien is het uit. Administreren of misschien uit. En waarom is de emotional freedom techniek?
Okay, that's the kind where you tap, right? Okay, I'm not sure why it works. I don't have a lot of information about it, other than knowing about it. Okay. I think what it is that I'm not quite sure why it was. But it could well be what I'd like to talk about is just mind. Okay. I don't really understand exactly how emotional freedom techniques work, but it seems to have something to do with the mind affecting body and an instantaneous recognition of something that immediately has an effect. That is mirrored in many, many other kinds of disciplines. If you look at the placebo effect, that's an intention. Biofeedback, that's an intention. Hypnosis uses the power of intention. Mental rehearsal in sports, all of these things are about the power of the mind to have an instantaneous effect on the body. And we know this because we know the brain is kind of stupid, and the brain can't distinguish between an action and the thought of an action. We see that in many studies of mental rehearsal in sports. You find that the body, when you use images on the body with just the thought of, say, skiing, downhill racing, the same muscles are activated as though you are actually carrying out the run itself. So the brain can't distinguish between an action and the thought of an action.
Ja, en hebben jullie nog vraag 6? Ordinary everyday therapeutic consultations.
About ordinary consultation situation in a doctor's, for instance. So we are interested in what the influence of this factor is on a context in a therapeutic setting, for instance, in a doctor-patient relationship.
Okay.
Yes.
doctor, up until now, we've thought about, I'm trying to think of it another way. Doctors view their roles in a way like a car mechanic. They go to the body and they try to repair it. They don't think about their mental influence on the patient. And we see this in many cases, that the doctor's negative attitude can actually have a profound effect when the patient lives or dies. Larry Dossey calls it hex death. When a doctor gives a diagnosis, he delivers a death sentence in a way if he says you've just got 3 months to live. Oftentimes, patients will follow doctor's orders. So one of the most fundamental aspects in this healing contract is understanding that the doctor has a mental as well as a physical. One of the most fundamental elements in this healing relationship is to understand that it is a two-way street, and the doctor has as much mental influence on the patient as he does physical influence. So his thoughts about the patient and the patient's abilities to survive are very, very important. I saw this in a personal sense when my mother-in-law had cancer, and ordinary doctors believed that she had 3 months to live. We brought her to a specialist who uses mind-body techniques, and he looked at her. She had breast cancer, and her breast was really ravaged by cancer. And when he examined her, he just said to her very lightly, "We can handle this." And that, I'm sure, had one of the most profound effects on reversing her cancer, because within a month, all of her cancer was gone. Oh, yeah.
Do you know anything which are done in this doctor-patient situation as far as intention goes?
There's some really interesting studies about the effect of healers and this contract and what's important in the contract. Many studies showing, for instance, when the healer, there are many studies of the therapist-patient relationship, but they have more to do with studies of healers. I'll say that one more time. There are a number of studies of the therapist-patient relationship, but most of them have to do with healers, not medical doctors. The studies I've seen have a number of really interesting aspects. For instance, Dr. Gary Schwartz at the University of Arizona conducted a number of studies of healers trying to heal bacteria. And he found that they had variable effects. Sometimes their healing worked, some didn't. So he wasn't really sure what was going on there. He decided to see whether or not the healers themselves had an effect, whether or not their feeling well in themselves had an effect. So he gave them a questionnaire about how they felt, whether they felt well physically, mentally, their well-being in every way. And he found a correspondence between when healers felt well and their effectiveness as healers. So it suggests to me that the healer himself has to be feeling well in every way to have a maximum effect, and that his own well-being has a profound healing relationship.
About the exercise, you suggest powering up this factor.
The intention. Okay, it takes just a minute. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. We're doing good. Thank you. That's great. About powering up. In my book, The Intention Experiment, we created a program called Powering Up, which I took from both the scientific literature and also many interviews with so-called intentionists, that's Qigong masters, Buddhist monks, and healers, to try to determine and distill what techniques turn them into good and effective intenders, what works in the laboratory, what kinds of conditions are the effect of mind over matter. And from this in this Powering Up program. I think one of the most effective techniques in using intention is intense focus. And by that I mean getting into a meditative state and focusing on your intention in a very, very profound way. When people think of meditation, they think of the mind flowing on. But in looking at some of the study of intention masters, like Buddhist monks, I've seen that when they're in a state of very strong intention, when they're trying to have an effect, say a Buddhist monk is trying to change his metabolism, he enters a state of very, very intense focus, and his brain doesn't slow down. His brain is speeding up. It's called gamma state. The electrical currents of the brain are at a very, very rapid rate, a very rapid rate. It's a bit like when you are attending to something with every pore of your body. So I suggest that people try to use mindful meditation. After they've stilled their minds, they try practicing on a focus, practicing on some focus of what they're doing at the present moment with all their five senses, and not think about what they're going to do the next day, or what happened yesterday, or what they have to do that day, or what their children are doing, but just focus on the moment. That's a kind of mind technique that helps learn not to be a very focused intender. Now, where this has to let me just tell. Another really important element of my Growing Up program is the idea of compassion, sending your intention out through your heart, not through your head, and having. Okay.
Because you are touching the
Okay. Another important element of my Powering program is the whole idea of compassion, of sending your intention out through your heart, not just your head, so that you are feeling compassion for the target of your intention. So in the case of the doctor-patient relationship, if a doctor could go in with the intention of healing and have a very specific intention on his patient to heal that aspect of the body, so he sends it out and he sends it out through his heart, that would be remarkable. That it's not just about being a car mechanic. It's about using my body to affect his patient and entering into kind of a contract together.
Can you talk about the grandmother law, that story, and then you can change the image?
Which is this?
You don't mention the word contract in your book, do you?
I've written about it recently. Yeah.
It's very good.
Oh, good. It is a contract. It is a contract. So I'm happy to talk about that a bit more.
For example, and then your own experience.
My mother-in-law? Okay. I'll give you a good example of this. My mother-in-law had what was considered end-stage breast cancer, and the doctors gave her 3 months to live. So my husband and I took her to a doctor who was an specialist in mind-body medicine. So my husband and I took her to a specialist who's... So my husband and I took her to a doctor who's a specialist in mind-body medicine. And we examined her. Her breast was ravaged by cancer. And I know her regular doctor had flinched when he looked at her. But this doctor, as he was examining her, was very carefree about it. And he looked at her and he said, "Oh, I think we can handle this." And I am convinced that that positive attitude, that sense of hope that he transmitted to my mother-in-law was paramount in turning her into her disease. Within a month, besides the vitamins he gave her, he gave her intravenous. His program was simple. He just changed her diet slightly. He gave her vitamins, and he gave her intravenous vitamin C. And within a month, her cancer was completely turned around. But once again, I think that element of hope, that transmission, that this was handleable, that this wasn't a death sentence, that it wasn't such a bad thing, was the thing that got her well. I want to make it specific.
And not the vitamins.
And not the vitamins, no. I think that many people take loads of vitamins, but still think they're going to die.
Then you, in addition, mentioned the entanglement and entrainment between the
Okay.
people. Add that to your explanation.
Okay. In my research, I was interested in looking at what happens between the sender and receiver in intention. I came across a number of really interesting studies called DMILs, or Direct Mental Influencing Systems. One of the most interesting is a study called the Love Study, carried out by the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And what they did is they took a real live drama, patients with cancer, breast cancer, and their partners, and they trained the well partners in sending healing attention, using focused attention, belief, and compassion. So they put the person with cancer in one room, with a video camera trained on her, and the partner in another room, the video screen. And whenever his partner's picture came up, he was supposed to send her a healing intention. And they had both partners wired up with things to measure brain waves, heart waves, all sorts of things like that. What they discovered, and this is the case in many studies, is that when someone sends intention, the brain waves, heart waves, many areas of their physiological systems start becoming entrained. By trained, I mean they synchronize. They start mirroring each other. It's a bit like having two pendulums moving next to each other. Even if they're out of sync, eventually they'll start moving in sync. There's a little exchange energy that goes on. And scientists wonder whether or not the same thing happens in healing intention. That when the sender is sending out intention, it gets mirrored in the body of the receiver. Certainly the evidence we have so far suggests that. Okay.
Dancing.
Okay. Entrainment occurs in many areas of nature, but the most common way of entrainment occurs in many areas of nature. Even tides are entrained. No, I'm going to forget. I won't go there. Entrainment occurs in many areas of nature. The simplest example is with two pendulums. If you have two pendulums in the same room and they're going in opposite directions like this, eventually they'll end up going in sync like this. And that is entrainment. It's exchange of energy occurring between two systems. So eventually they're marching to the same beat. Okay, good. You got my hands.
Because otherwise you see only the tip of your fingers.
Okay.
When we're fighting against the placebo, the bad connotation of placebo. Can you explain how patients and doctors use the placebo mechanism to reinforce the effect?
Are you okay? Are you okay with the nurse?
Maybe start with intention.
Okay. Oh, we're plenty. We're fine. We have plenty of time. Yeah, it's a really nice day. Well, we had a nice day for a minute.
Okay, then we have 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking placebo effect. Okay. Doctors talk about the placebo effect as though it is something to the placebo effect because, no, I won't say that. Medical scientists don't like the placebo effect because it confuses their results. And they're trying to test a drug and they're testing it against a placebo. So many people react to the placebo positively that it oftentimes messes up the results. But if you look at the placebo effect another way, it just demonstrates the power of intention. The placebo is another example. The placebo is a wonderful example of intention. The placebo effect works out 60 to 70% of the time. And in fact, it's believed that something like 60% of all medicines are actually a placebo. That doctors oftentimes prescribe inactive substances with just a little bit of the active substance in there. So because they know that the placebo works so well. A recent study in the British Medical Journal of cardiac patients looked at this and discovered that it didn't matter whether patients were taking the actual cardiac drug or a placebo. They both worked absolutely the same. The only important element was whether the patient actually believed that the drug was going to do him some good, and if he followed doctor's orders. So what this means is that a doctor can take advantage of the power of belief, the power of intention, and send an intention to a placebo, and the patient can take the placebo and believe it's going to work. It doesn't matter if it's a drug. The placebo is the greatest drug there is. A wonderful example of that occurred at the University of, a wonderful example of that occurred in a hospital in Houston. A group of doctors decided to carry out a study of arthritis patients, doing an operation. Half of the group got an actual operation to fix their arthritis, and the others just had a sham operation, where their legs were just opened and shut with nothing done to them. And the doctors discovered, after monitoring the patients for 3 years, that the patients given the sham operation felt completely well after they had the operation. And they carried on feeling well. In fact, they did better than the people getting the operation. So my own contention is that the power of the mind is so strong that we don't actually need drugs. We just need good intentions. Oh, thank you. And oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Because they added very much to your presentation.
Thank you.
Kijk jij eventjes hoe die uitkomt? Ik wil iets meer op haar gezicht, op het midden van haar gezicht zetten.
I saw this placebo. I saw the placebo thing. Oh, thank you very much.
Ja, helemaal.
Yeah, I've seen this as well. That's really interesting. Yeah. Sorry, yes. Yes, no, that's fine.
This is from the point of view of placebo, but you also have it on love affairs or aggression or things like that. We have these sequences of these, but it's all the same areas where you get...
Yeah, thoughts change your brain, basically.
But
thoughts change your brain.
Aspect which you mentioned in your book, that it starts in your brain before anything else happens.
Yes,
yes. There's an anticipation effect.
Yes, yes.
Things are happening before we happen.
Thank you. I think it's just that, that's it. There we go. There. I got a better one now. Good. Thank you. Here, and I'll just take this out. Thank you. Thank you.
Point that you put your finger when explaining.
Okay. I mean, I know the Parkinson's story. As soon as the placebo, the brain started creating dopamine, or the body started producing dopamine.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. What would you like me to? How would you like me to lead into it?
You mentioned the MRI in your book and the relationship to our everyday practice situation.
Mm-hmm. MRI and functional MRI are really interesting imaging techniques that enable us to look at the structure of the brain and also the activity of the brain in terms of functional MRI, what the brain's doing in real time. And what's fascinating in many studies of monks and also patients is what happens during a placebo, or what happens when you're thinking certain thoughts at a certain time. One thing we understand is the brain is a highly plastic organ that changes according to the nature of our thoughts. They discovered that recently at the University of Wisconsin with monks. They found that monks who had engaged in many years of meditation had actually increased the attention portion of their brains and the happiness portion of their brains. They were able to focus on something more intently. But studies using MRI on ordinary people demonstrate that just after a few weeks of meditation, the brain structure changes, certain aspects enlarge. And so it suggests to me that we can become better intenders using things like intense focus, and that certain elements in the brain also synchronize better. The intuitive portion of the brain and the analytical portion of the brain, they found, also marry up much more. Now, what's very interesting is looking at these kinds of studies with patients taking a placebo. For instance, there was some really fascinating research in Canada on Parkinson's patients, and they found that as soon as they were given a placebo, the body immediately began creating dopamine. It was the expectation, the thought of getting the drug was good enough for the body to actually produce the brain chemical that the body needs in the case of Parkinson's. So the thought was as good as a drug. Is that what you were thinking about? That's what you wanted to talk about.
Something about the story?
They had Parkinson's, the Parkinson case. Oh, the pain, yeah. And pain also. They had something about, I remember seeing this pain situation. With people, I think they've had other studies, if you want me to just talk about that, other studies showing that where they administered pain to patients but gave them a placebo. I can't remember the study exactly, but there was some element of pain where their pain was reduced. I think it was another study where they gave them a painkiller and their pain was reduced just by the thought. It's a similar situation. The body begins to produce opioids. The body produces whatever's needed just from the thought of taking something.
Will you add to that, or that's more or less similar?
I think it's the same as the Parkinson's thing. I mean, I just say there are similar studies with administering pain to people and giving a painkiller. Do you want me to talk about that?
I think Parkinson's is more clear.
Yeah.
More substance.
I think that's pretty amazing with the dopamine.
It's always like...
Yeah. Well, I have another example that's even better. There's an even more amazing example of the power of the thought on the body with a doctor in Spain called Dr. Ángel Escudero. He routinely operates on patients without anesthesia. What he does is he asks them to think to themselves that their mouths are full of saliva, because the body knows when the mouth is full of saliva, everything's okay. Usually when we're stressed about anything or frightened, we lose saliva and our mouth dries up. So he keeps telling them to repeat to themselves, my mouth is full of saliva. And he finds that that's a powerful signal to the body that it is not experiencing pain, to the point where he operates without the anesthesia. And as long as they think their minds are full of saliva, they don't feel the pain.
I wouldn't want my mind full of saliva.
I know, I know, exactly. That'd be a little scary, wouldn't it? Yeah, I know. It's all right, or do you want me to repeat that bit?
And you finally do one more thing, that you bring together the contact in the everyday consultation situation between the doctor and the patient.
Okay.
The translation of intention into contract.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I call the relationship between doctor and patient a healing contract, because I think that there are responsibilities on both sides. I think the doctor has an obligation to be well and to be healed. I mean, there have been studies demonstrating that when somebody is given healing, when a healer is being given healing, it increases his effect. So healing heals the healer, and the healer ought to be healed. It's very important for the healer to feel well in every day. It's very important for the healer to feel well in every way. If a doctor comes into his surgery, did you call it a surgery here? If a doctor comes into his surgery and he's feeling awful or he's very upset, he could transmit that to his patients. We now understand that we are transmitters and receivers of energy at every moment. So he has to be very careful about his thoughts. What is he trying to transmit to the patient? It's also really important for him to create an empathetic bond with his patient. And he can do that just by maybe holding his patient's hand for a minute, or exchanging something meaningful, or sitting in silence together meditating for 5 minutes. That sounds outrageous, but it's been demonstrated to have a powerful healing effect. On the patient's part, it's very important not to see anybody you don't believe in. Belief and your trust in that person has to be absolute. If you have that kind of trust and belief, whatever he or she prescribes for you is going to work. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the belief that's paramount.
Do you have perhaps one nice quote that you can use at the end? Maybe perhaps a quote you finish your lectures with? One quote, one
Okay.
very strong
I'm usually...
Roos? Dat krijg je nu een afsluitend...
I'm just thinking which one. You want one single sentence? Okay. Okay. The implications of the power of thought are astounding about our nature. The implications of the power of thought are astounding about our ability to influence our world. And it's my hope that we can use our thoughts to best effect and maybe find the one true thought that can change the world. That's the kind you want? Okay. 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 Okay, or do you want anything that's more in the healing and...
Perhaps about the relation, your opinion about the new possibilities that could be practiced
in medicine?
In medicine.
Okay.
Because we are hearing this about the new possibilities.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. The possibilities suggested by this research in terms of medicine and the way we heal people are astounding. But they start with the power of thought. What we all must realize is that between the doctor and patient, the thoughts that are being I think I want to say we have to understand about I think what's really important is maybe the idea that we have to be mindful of what we're thinking. In the healing, in the therapeutic situation, you have to be mindful. The most important thing is to be mindful of what you're thinking in the healing situation, and for all of us. The research, okay. Okay.
New perspective, new horizons.
Okay. Okay, this suggests horizons. Okay. This research suggests many astounding possibilities about the way in which we can use thoughts to heal each other. It doesn't have to be in a waiting room. It can be across 3,000 miles. But as soon as we understand exactly how the power of thought works, we can harness it to heal the world. Yeah. Okay. Good. Good? Oh, may I? Which is that? Oh, this one, the one about Parkinson's. Yeah.
Can you just say that you probably won't use it, But perhaps you can say, here you see, and then you will take that photo later.
I think this is the one. I'm not sure if it's the same one, but I think it is.
Perhaps you can take this, and then...
I'm not really sure if this is the same study. I know of one on Parkinson's, but I'm not sure it's the same one.
General thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't show anything.
No.
En welke is dan van Parkinson? Placebo?
Die smaakt niet wel.
Nou ja, dat is handig voor...
You just want an image, right?
Parkinson zit hier, hè?
Would you mind if we add some pictures in between?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Parkinson zit...
Okay, dan laten we
I think, you might be better off finding this and finding better pictures. Yeah. Okay.
If you want more of these, I can send you addresses.
Okay. No, I'd be very interested. I'll give you my card, and I'm always interested in more.
Then you can do it to anybody. You can do it to me.
What's your name again?
If you start making the
What's your name?
now?
No.
What is your name?
Elaine.
Elaine? Elaine?
Just do it fake.
Helene.
Can you make the attention to right? Good.
Only the intention.
Good. Start now.
Very delicate.
Look in the camera? Oh.
Well, that would be nice.
You get very many people coming tomorrow?
I think so. I think there's a bunch of people coming tomorrow. I don't have the final numbers, but it should be fun. Yeah. Good. So Edward was going to, I thought he was going to come today. I'm sorry not to see him because... I know. But they are. Isn't that nice? That's my favorite. Yeah, well, that's why we have it on the website. Isn't that? I love this. This is my favorite. Yeah, I didn't. I don't have much time for you, I'm afraid. I'm thinking anyway. The only thing I need is a map of. I need a map. Here was my. This was my hotel.